So it was actually day 4 when I had my first walk, because my surgery, I came out in the evening of day 3 at 7 p.m. and we were actually out of the hospital by 1 p.m. the following day. So it wasn't quite 24 hours in hospital. My first walk was at 5 a.m. and this was followed by a couple more which progressed, and my stamina increased with each of them. Shortly after this I had my catheter removed, which was an interesting experience. I'd never had a catheter before, and it was a pulling, dragging sensation when they take it out. I find just closing your eyes and thinking of something else as it's happening makes it pass quite quickly, and I was glad to have it removed and to have that kind of independence of being able to be up and about. The surgeon's assistant came in and changed my chin dressing. So I had a big fat bandage and it was taped to the top of my head, which, being claustrophobic, I know not everybody is, it felt quite restrictive to me, and I actually asked to have that removed. But when you have a jowl correction or liposuction to the neck or chin, it is advised to have this upward pressure kept in place to help with the recovery, the drainage of the swelling. So instead I've had tapes put in a diagonal direction to cause that friction, that force that pulls it upwards and holds it as the head dressing would have been. I also had my stomach checked, so that was to open up the corset to check that there was no redness or anything out of the ordinary. Everything was fine. I'd had a blood test to confirm that there was no infection, and I was given clearance to be able to leave my hospital room at 1 p.m. Before I was allowed to leave, I had lunch to make sure that I'd eaten, been to the toilet, and that I was capable of walking, so that I could return to the hotel with my partner and spend the rest of the duration of the trip from my hotel and returning to the clinic or the hospital for checkups with my surgeon and nurses. By day 5, I needed less sleep. I noticed that I could stay awake for longer and that I could actually be out of bed more consistently. So this was sitting up in chairs, taking walks to the bathroom, standing on the balcony, and just being more upright and active. I carried my drains in a bag, so the 4 bottles that came out of me, just to bundle them together keeps them all in one place. Popping them into a shopping bag means that you can walk around without bumping them. And I was actually able to have a hair wash by day 5, which was very exciting for me. I'm not actually able to take a shower for a week because my dressings have to stay dry and clean. So to be able to have some kind of freshness was absolutely lovely. Before that point, all I did was sleep, so it didn't really concern me with how I looked. But at that point, that felt like the turning of being a bit more human. Also on day 5, I was able to leave the hotel room and go down for breakfast, where I was able to sit with other patients who had had different surgeries. I think coming to a hotel where other patients have had surgery, you don't feel like the odd one out. You don't feel that people are staring or that it's awkward or you're putting people off of their food. Because as I looked around, there were lots of people, men and women of different ages with different procedures, and I felt that there was no one size that fits all. There was a lady who had a tummy tuck and a mummy makeover. There were quite a few hair transplants. There was a nose surgery, rhinoplasty, and just other people where they would be carrying drains under their clothes, but you couldn't tell what they'd had done. So it was nice just to know that it's an environment where you're not judged, and lots of people come here for surgery and for that reason. So also on day 5, we returned to the surgeon's clinic. This was separate from the hospital, and I had my dressings changed. My chin was once again redressed, and this time the big pad came off and just the smaller bandages were applied. It was determined that I could have 2 of my drains removed, as although I had 4 bottles, there were 5 tubes that went into me. One was a split tube. So that split tube was removed. We had to keep track of the amount of blood that was collected in each drain, and this was measured by writing down the time of day and the volume of liquid that was within them. So those 2 were pulled out, which was lovely, and the others were kept in place for 1 further day, just to remove as much fluid as possible before returning home. I noticed when monitoring swelling that my wrists and my hands were the first telltale sign of how swollen I was, and actually they've returned to almost normal now, as we're at day 6 today. So it's nice to see as that goes down and the fluid reduces in the drains, that you are going through that healing process. It's really a good visual marker of your journey. I find that under my eyes I'm still quite puffy, and the colour of bruising is coming out on my face, but actually on my stomach, because it's covered, it's not something that I can see as clearly. It's only when I go for checks that I'm able to take a quick peek and see the results, which look amazing each time. And as each day passes, I know they'll be more defined and more sharpened as that swelling reduces. We then had dinner on the balcony, which was really lovely. It was the first time to be able to eat outdoors. I really enjoyed that, to sit in the sunshine, to watch the river. It's a lovely place for the hotel to be situated, because just a short walk away is a beautiful park. There's shops, places you can eat and buy ice creams. And we actually spent the evening walking 2 miles with my drains in the sunshine, and it was so relaxing. There was a lovely gentle breeze, and despite it being hot and wearing these extra garments which are quite heated, especially for me when I easily get overheated, it was still really nice to do. You could sit on benches, you could go to the park, and just to walk around with lots of families, and it's a very safe and welcoming environment. So finally, day 6, which was yesterday, we returned to the hospital at 8 AM, and this was to have the stitches removed. It took around 30 minutes from start to finish to remove the stitches for the butterfly stitches across my eyes, which are just a dressing that peeled off. The chin was left as is, as this comes off tomorrow, which is day 9. And the stomach was an interesting one. I prefer to lay down to have dressings changed, just in case I get dizzy, because I know I am prone to fainting. I find normally that if I am going to faint, that my hearing will go as if I'm underwater, my eyes will go cloudy, I'll feel very hot, and then I will faint. So I know to watch out for those signs. I know that it's something, if you have blood taken, sit down and put your arm on a table, just so you're not swaying or moving. And very much the same for when I have dressings and bandages changed. I always think it's just safer to lay down. I was quite sweaty, quite nervous, and it was really nice to have my partner there to be able to squeeze his hand, having the stitches removed with the abdominal liposuction. This was the most stitches I've ever experienced with a surgery. Normally it's just a 1 row, but this was, you know, a track that ran up the sides and center of my stomach, as well as the drains that were within it, and they reached all the way up to the top of my bra line. So it was probably the most invasive stitching that I've ever experienced, but equally the results are incredible, and very instantly there was this 6-pack there, which was amazing. We actually played a word game as my stitches were removed, and that helped me to take my mind off of what was going on. I tried to do some deep breathing, but the movement of my stomach, I was worried that I would cause them to pull it in a difficult situation. So I found myself shallow breathing, closing my eyes, playing a word game, just trying to distract and pass the time, because you don't want to look at what's going on. And something that they kept telling me was to look up as you have anything done for post checkups, because it helps you to feel a bit more grounded and less dizzy. So whenever you have something done, don't look down, especially if you're standing. So really to take your mind off of things and pass the time however you feel comfortable. I did feel like a complete wuss at the end of it, and apologise for being such a baby about it. But you know, everybody takes things differently. For me, the stitches were probably the worst part of the surgery, as silly as that sounds. I wouldn't say any of it was painful, it was more discomfort post-surgery, as you are on pain relief anyway. But that was the point where it was a sharp tugging sensation as the stitches were coming out. But as soon as they're removed, it's that sense of relief. And it was just a really nice, thank goodness feeling to be able to have that over with. My surgeon was there, and he was able to take post-op pictures, which he then showed me in real time, the before and after pictures, which he then merged together to be able to show me the sheer difference of my results, even though I was still swollen. So to be able to see my eyes for the first time, to be able to compare my jawline, and to see that I have this 6-pack under here was absolutely amazing. I was so overcome with joy. I gave my surgeon a hug and said thank you, and everybody was just so lovely. It was a really nice relief to have everything removed and taken away. The drains themselves, whilst it's not a pleasant experience, it's a dragging sensation from within. It only lasts a few seconds at a time. So following that, we discussed my aftercare and what I have to do in the UK when I return home, and that's to apply different creams. So I have a cream to go on my eyelids and also a cream to go on the dressing holes where the stitches came out. They're left open and they just close naturally. They heal from within and up to the surface, just as a normal cut would. So prior to having a shower, I have to put the special cream on there, have the shower, and then reapply the cream. I wear this garment for a month, and I also have a chin strap to take home with me to be able to try probably when it's a bit cooler and when I feel less claustrophobic. Although the facial massage will work in much the same way, which I can also do. Having the large pad removed, it makes it easier to move. It isn't as restrictive, but I've been asked to sit more upright. When I first had the pad on my stomach, you have 3 pieces of compression garments that go on. There's a stiff pad, a corset, and then a wrap-around Velcro piece that goes on the top. You are very stiff, so you kind of walk like you're waddling like a duck. And getting in and out of bed is quite interesting because you can't engage the abs to come up because you're kept so straight. So I find pushing with your arms behind you to lift yourself up or being lifted by a partner really does help. You kind of find your own way to deal with that. I have to sleep on my back for a month now, and having that pad removed also means that I have better flexibility. It makes it far more comfortable not to have the drains in. And from where I went from hunching over, it kind of pulls you forwards, which is good when you are healing. Having that pad removed and the drains out, now I'm encouraged to stand upright, walk tall, and avoid creasing on my stomach. So when I return to England, I will send pictures to my surgeon at day 7, and this will be a way for him to check how I'm healing. He will then tell me if I need to add additional garments for healing, and also to visit Aftercare in London. But also there are pictures that you can send, video calls that you can have, and also WhatsApp group messages where you can reach the team at any time. So you're always in contact, and any concerns they address very quickly, day or night. So I do find, quite comically, that sleeping on my back does cause me to snore. I don't think I've ever been somebody that snores, but having to lay backwards, supported with pillows, you may want to get some earplugs for your partner, but it will only be momentary because you can return to sleeping on your side and front after 1 month post-surgery. I did actually ask my surgeon if I could go to a theme park because it's half term in the UK when I return, and he said 10 days after surgery you can sit on a roller coaster, just in case you wanted to know. So following this, I had my painkillers before the treatment, before I had the stitches removed, and it helped to make it a bit more bearable. We returned to our hotel and had the rest of the day to do as we pleased. We actually walked down the road to have some lovely lunch, took another trip to the river, and just spent the afternoon in the park watching children play ball games. They had a really interesting ball game here, which is like piggy in the middle with a child, and instead of throwing the ball over the child tried to catch it, they throw the ball at the children and try to tag the children, which we found really fun. It's not something we'd experienced before in England. But there's lots of children riding scooters, there's ducks and people rowing, and it's just really relaxing to be able to recover in the sunshine. I find personally, as a mother, I prefer to go away, have surgery, spend those days recovering without any responsibility, to be able to just rest and sleep, and for the swelling to reduce so that by the time I go home I'll be sprightly and cheerful and ready to see my friends and family without causing them too much concern that they might think I'm a bit sleepy or looking bruised. After our 3-mile walk, I took one final nap, and then we had a lovely rooftop dinner on our balcony and watched the sunset, which was just the perfect ending to our little holiday/surgery breakaway in Istanbul. So today we are leaving for the airport shortly. We're going to go and have our breakfast before we do our packing. We check out of the room at 12, and then we have a few hours just to while around, probably walk down to the river again. Before we're collected by the clinic centre and returned to the airport to catch our flight home. So I hope you found this diary informative. I will continue to show you my results when I return to England, when my final dressings on my chin can come off, and when I have my final before and after pictures to show you. I'm really thrilled with the results so far. I'm more mobile and energetic each day that passes, and it's actually been really nice to spend a week not wearing makeup and not worrying about how I look. I think, you know, to see lots of people of all different ages and walks of life having all different procedures, the people you meet, the team that welcomes us and takes care of us, the nurses, they're so lovely. It's so heartwarming to see. And actually it's nice to see people making choices for themselves, for their bodies, and for what they feel comfortable and confident with. So I think we should all have the freedom of choice over how we prefer to look at any age and any stage of life. And I hope that I've given you some more information should you be considering having surgery yourself. So I will see you when we touch down in England.